welcome to Disclosure Network New York. This is a members Zoom meeting. This will be on Wednesday night, and that is May 5th, 2021. I'm Nick Curto, co-founder and director of Disclosure Network New York. DNNY is a grassroots organization, and we're proudly now celebrating our 20th year of providing 2 meetings a month throughout the year, and we are based in Manhattan. We focus on cutting-edge UFO ET issues, paranormal phenomenon of all kinds, as well as many important and related subjects from a wide variety of areas and sources as we go deep into these exciting and sometimes very misunderstood subjects that the mainstream press will not talk about or very seldom ever discuss. Our members do intensive investigative research in these various cutting edge topics and share that information with the group at our meetings, as well as on we call the oh God, I can't think of the name of it, the DNN News Blast service. People from our members give me on email their latest research, what they found on the internet, and then I post it to every member of our group. So we do it every single day, and needless to say, this has been an extraordinary year, as you can well imagine, and there's at least 5-10 emails a day. That's how busy this gets. And I'll tell you, we have an amazing team of researchers and people who share that information. And I just want to thank everybody for contributing to that almost daily. It's quite something. We have a website, which is dnny.info. And if you want to reach me for any reason, I'm going to give you my email address, which is nicknyny1. And that's the numeral 1, not ONE, the numeral 1 at gmail.com. Again, nicknyny1 at gmail.com. Now, our last but not least, our motto right from day one is, quote, connecting the dots to seek truth. And we really do stand by that and do that on a daily basis. Okay, with that said, it is my honor and pleasure to introduce our 2 speakers for this evening. They are an amazing team. They are dear, dear friends. They are incredibly knowledgeable about just about any subject that we are interested in. They've got detailed information. They've been on my podcast last Saturday and literally burned the wires of what they were saying. It was incredibly wonderful and interesting. And they go very deep into these subjects. So Marc and Phyllis Brinkerhoff, welcome.
Thank you.
Thank you, guys. So Marc, let me just ask you now, I know that there's some key things on your mind and Phyllis's mind. And so where should we start with this? We'll go into subjects as we go, but where do you like to start?
We were thinking of levels, but we didn't know if some people had other ideas of things they were curious about, what's going on in space or our planet and the sun. But that's our main things that we talk about. But there's other things we talk about too, like life after death when you leave here.
You know what we recently found out, and when I say we recently found out, because we were watching something on TV, and I asked Marc to ask the crew about it. I said, how many people actually get stuck? We were watching a Hans Holzer show on paranormal, hauntings and all of that. So I said, what percentage of the people on the planet actually get stuck in the in-between space and never make it to the first level of heaven? What percentage? Does anybody want to guess what they said?
Well,
anybody? Go ahead.
It was a weird. The crew in Sananda said that roughly 20 to 25% of the people on the whole planet Earth can get stuck on these purgatory type levels and different things like that, because they don't have a belief system, they have no beliefs, or they're confused about what happens and what happens when you leave this plane. So some people will head back, will leave their body, maybe be in a funeral parlor even, Before that, they'll leave their body when they pass on. But sometimes they don't. They get like in a sleep state. So they might come out of their body in a hospital even or a morgue and head either to the hospital room they remember or back to home where they feel familiar. And then they might be there if they don't know where to go. And if they don't have people praying for them, they can get stuck for a while. It's interesting how it can work. That's why we are always promoting, Phyllis and I are promoting prayer for everybody. So it's the prayer that if a person doesn't have a belief system or doesn't even believe in anything, or is not sure, we pray for them to be located, let's say too. So what is one of our prayers is, I believe, I adore, I hope, and I love you to Creator. I ask pardon of you for those who do not believe, do not adore, do not hope, and do not love you. And that was a prayer given to the Fatima children by the angel of peace, the angel of peace. And he was saying by doing that, the Creator comes closer towards us to hear our prayer. It's because we're giving up in praise, we're giving up in love, and we're praying for our brothers and sisters, even those we don't know and who aren't born yet or have passed on already. So we're praying for all souls, even those who might be stuck in purgatory type levels, which are the levels of confusion sometimes. They're just a waiting zone too. Like a lot of people from 9/11, when that occurred in the towers, went to a waiting zone here in New York, as well as New Jersey. They were taken by angels to another area in New Jersey, across the river, let's say, across where they could see it. And they were confused for a while because they were in shock, but they get rescued by the angels, and then they get taken by their own guardians. They could see. So we had a story from a friend of ours who told us about somebody he knew in New Jersey, but it's a strange story, but it was a true story where the girl was a woman and she was in her kitchen and she felt someone standing behind her and she's home alone. So she turns around, there's a man standing in the doorway in a business suit and young, about 28, 30, something like that. And she said she was confused, but he talked to her. And I'm just making this short because he basically visited her twice, I think. The first time was to please let my fiance know I'm okay. And I think he gave her the name then. So she was like, okay, what happened? So then he dematerializes. So she figured it was the 9/11 thing just occurred the day before, or 2 days before. So and then, oh no, I'm sorry, this is the same day, the same time. He said, let people know we're stuck. We're in a waiting area. We don't know where we're going, and we were following a light, but it took us to another waiting area because so many people had to be processed through. And he ended up in New Jersey, and that's where she was. So he was in the New Jersey waiting zone. So then he left that name of a woman, and she looked up names on a list. He might have given his name, but she looked up names on a list and found his name as one of the people that had died in the no body or whatever they did. So she tried to locate his family and find out who the fiance was. And she gave the message to her. So this was giving them hope, like, oh, he's okay. And there's a lot of other people with him, and that they were listening to those in charge, which were angels. So we know that, but they were told, wait here, we're getting others. So they were getting their guardians, and everybody was getting together to find each other. And there were people that were lost that were never found their bodies because they were like disintegrated, but they were still okay. She comes back one more time to tell her everything, I think, thank her, to calm his family down, that he was okay, but that they were on their way. They were going to be going soon, and thanking people for prayers.
Whoa.
So that was so long ago, and but I didn't know the woman. Our friend in Jersey, told us that story that she had mentioned to him. And these are people that don't really believe in it.
I just want to jump in and say that they were actually lucky in a way, because so many people prayed for the people that were lost.
Yeah.
But how many times does somebody die and, maybe you don't say a prayer for them because you figure they don't need it, or maybe you're busy, whatever the case may be. Are we always operating at our highest level of good? Probably not. But in that particular case, a lot of people were praying for the fallen of 9/11. So that guy benefited from those prayers.
And the other people too, because he even didn't really talk about anything like as if he had a belief system. This is what's interesting, like he didn't say, pray to someone. He didn't say anything like that. It was more like let people know and to pray for help us. And he didn't mention anything else like Yehoshua or anything like that, but just
Wow,
people in
what
charge.
an incredible story that really is. I've never heard anything quite like that. Thank
Me
you for
neither.
sharing that.
That was a great one. Now I was going over and seeing the waiting zones, and I knew they were stuck, but they weren't really stuck. They were just in waiting areas, which is when they get family from the other side to come over and visit with the new arrival, because so much confusion happens when you have explosions, especially nuclear bombs. It's really bad. That's one of the reasons the people on the other side are space friends, and as well, I'm really the people in space on the other side, not Earth people, because they wouldn't know about it. But the space beings, like whose friend, the Ashtar Command, all these other beings out there in the alliances, I'll say we, because I'm part of it, we know that when you have a nuclear explosion or any of these atomic bombs going off back in the 40s, and that's when they came into view, see what was going on. They knew that what was occurring, and the reason they were able to come in. I hope you hear me well, because I got my microphone here.
Fine, fine.
The reason they were able to come in was because our nuclear bombs and our atomic bombs or whatever are affecting the other side on the etheric realms, which are just right over here, right with us here. So that explosion would occur on their side in a different way, not like here, it might blast things all to pieces, but on their side, it would occur as a shaking, like a little earthquake effects, or a transmission effect of frequencies changing. So they said, we have a right now to come in. That's why they came to visit back in the 40s and before. But they came back to visit purposely for that, because they said, now we have a reason to come in because it's affecting us. We don't remember the day the earth stood still. I love that original movie when Klaatu was saying, we don't care how you do your things on your planet and how you govern this or that. It was like, but when you come into this kind of stuff, and now you're affecting the ripples of time on frequencies over there on the other side with the space being galaxies, our solar system, things reverberate. And even if they didn't understand it in the movie, when I heard it, I was like, yeah, we don't care how you rule your planet, but when you start blowing things up and affecting others, or causing a chain reaction that can affect the moon or the next planet over, now we're coming in. And that's why they did that back then. And what's funny is the Roswell incident and those other incidents that occurred in other parts of the world, Germany and other places, Russia as well. When craft crashed or came down, sometimes they might have had frequencies they were working with, but sometimes I found out back in the 70s that some of these beings allowed some things to happen. They knew it was going to happen, but they allowed it because they wanted some of this technology to be shown to help the Earth move up a couple of notches to get further and closer to the space realms and getting out to space, which really would have happened faster if Earth people at the time in charge had been open to the
Mark, I got to jump in for one second, because I've just done some real research, especially in that era, because there's a lot of, as you know, information of what was going on. It seems like what you were saying about how the nuclear and atomic bombs triggered visitations, like you just said, and
really a lot.
And the Eisenhower meetings that were taking place, and also Valiant Thor and the Pentagon. I'm reading sections like that because I'm very interested in that era, especially because it's like all hell broke loose. Everything was going on, especially it triggered it, just like you just said. So I get it. Wow.
Wow, right? I mean, I was part of the people we were visiting at times. The Foo Fighters, those things that they saw were silver discs. And I'd spoken to people in the 70s who had been part of that, and knew people who've seen them. So I don't know what they say today. Sometimes they might say balls. The spheres are also, we call them, in those days were called probes. Now they don't want to use that word. So we'll just say surveillance mechanical things,
Technology.
technology. So there's spheres and there's discs that are 3 feet diameter, flat silver discs. They even might look like a little flying saucer. And my brother-in-law's wife saw one when she was 10 years old, and she's probably 10 in the 40s, like early 50s. It flew between her house at the time and her garage, the garage, and it zoomed by while they were playing basketball in the driveway or something. Came flying through, and she told me, she said it was a 3-foot diameter, roughly 3-foot silver little disc. It flew through. I thought it was one of the Foo Fighter types, because they called them Foo Fighters on Earth, right? They don't call them that. But these spheres can change shape and change dimensional space as well. So they look like flying spheres, or they look like a flying disc. Now, the Foo Fighters were from the space people monitoring and seeing what's going on. They come very close to their aircraft flying at the time, either didn't matter what side they were on. They were monitoring not only their thoughts telepathically, they can see what's going on with the craft and this person who's driving the aircraft. So they were monitoring that stuff back then. So each side called them, thought there was somebody else's technology tracking them, but it wasn't. It was space people at the time, because of what had happened and what they were sensing was happening, because they could see patterns in the future on those sides. Sort of like Earth's looking glass. It's beyond that on the other side. They have ways to get into all the dimensional spaces, and they can see what's going to come for the future, but the main future, because it's all depending on the free will of the people on the planet. So they were trying to get the president at the time to be convinced to work with the good guys, the Etherians, which would be the humanoid-looking Etherians. They look more human-like, so they could fit in with the people like they do anyway that are here. But they were trying to get them to go along with them as a contract idea. It's like, we'll help you, we'll get you, but this has to be done. This has to happen. You have to get rid of all the weapons, like nuclear bombs and all that stuff. And you have to get rid of this and share everything on the planet. Technology, we'll help you with healing. We'll give you medicines. We'll clean up things. We'll show you about pollutions. They had all that. That was in their guarantee to help, because that's what they have in the realms over there. So they were trying to do that. And then the Earth president, Eisenhower, I guess, at the time said, well, it would wreck everything we're doing. It would mess up our economy. It would, what was the other thing they said?
But that's primary.
Yeah, it was mostly the primary, their economy and power. You know, we have power with our weapons. You know, so that's all the sides. The other countries said the same thing. So basically, they didn't want to get together and have peace. And we would have been in space in the 50s. We would have been going already.
Well,
It would have been Star Trek-y
it's
by
not
now.
to say that we don't think we are already in space. It's
Well, we
just
are,
that
but
all of the people would
yeah,
enjoy it.
this is the thing. The space people who we know and love, like the Ashtar people and my friends in space, the Asteron Command, all these guys, these beings are not about physical planets, really. They're Etherians. They can work on them and be a part of them. And they're high Etherians, which means they're from another dimensional space coming down to the Etherian level, and they create a body to work with, physical bodies. So when they come in, like Balthon came to visit me in the park, he created a physical body to walk through and come into. And then when he left, he disappeared. He went back. So the Etherians can do that. They come through, they dematerialize in our eyes, and that's it. Like, that's what they do. If they come to stay longer, they have to wear something that keeps them here longer for their frequency to be balanced here with this density. So they'll wear a necklace, they might wear a belt, they might have something on their wrist, they might have a little something underneath their shirt or whatever they're wearing. Or like I've seen others, they have patterned into their whatever they're wearing. If they're wearing a shirt, an outfit, or a spacesuit, there might be a pattern in the suit itself. That's a frequency holder. So they will not have to wear a medallion. Although with George Van Tassel, one of the aliens that visited him, wore a medallion that was his holding device, let's say. And with that, he showed George Van Tassel how if I turned it a certain way, he said, I will be invisible. And then he did it, and he turned invisible. And you could walk around him, you would be able to touch him, he would be an invisible person. So George asked him, well, how would you stay if we're having a meeting or a military meeting and your guys are there, they do infiltrate them, they said. Well, he said, well, would everybody bump into you? He said, well, they could, but they stay back. They observe from areas. When people are coming by, they'll move out of the way. So that would be a physical, etheric being staying in ethereal density here And then he could walk out in the hall and turn back to total physical in a business suit, like Valiant Thor could do too. But Valiant wasn't just, he was an Etherean, but he was different Etherean. So he could dematerialize that when he needed to go to the ship, he could do that. He probably had other items on him too, anyway. You know, like looked like an Earth watch, but it was something more than that. But this is what I was shown in any way of seeing. And then with Valiant, Val found the one I met. He was scanning me with an item, and that was the thing that was reading my frequency and changing it enough for me to get onto the ship, because I'm in Earth, New York City, heavy energy. So they would cleanse that frequency. And when he was moving it around, he was asking questions like a microphone, but it wasn't a microphone. It was a little tiny silver, 3-inch long, roughly, cylinder. And he put it back in his jacket, which seemed to have no bump where he put it. So when he put it away, I didn't get it until after everything was done. When Phyllis had downloaded the pictures and saw what was 25 minutes or so missing time between my two photographs. So this is how they do that. But he was wearing clothing that looked space agey looking, not Earth-like, but he fit in enough. This is what they do. And so when I'm going back to the space people of the 1950s with George Van Tassel as well, these things would do this then. They could still do it now. And they probably are doing it all the time, coming to visit, walking through, doing what they do, being invisible to us. With George, they showed him that alien showed him, the Venusian-like alien, showed him what he would be able to do. And the reason I know that information is from a friend that we knew who's passed on, Jose, and he used to work with George Van Tassel in the early 1950s. And he was a scientist. So he had witnessed and heard stories that this had happened as well, but he witnessed something else. George Van Tassel had a beautiful photograph of a spaceship that resembled the George Adamski type craft that was photographed by George Adamski. And our friend Jose said that George asked him and said to show him the photo. He said, take this photo and show it to the military over there, the generals and their outfits.
They were at a party, right?
They were at a party, a gathering at, not Giant, what's that, Giant Rock?
Probably
Is at Giant Rock. And they would do their talks downstairs where George would get linked up. So he said, show this to them and hover by, don't let them take the photo. Make sure you're standing by and listen to what they say. So Jose went and did that. And he showed the general or someone. He says, look, these are friends of George Van Tassel because he was in the military too. So he said, what do you think of this? And George wants you to know, what do you think of that? So that one of the generals takes it and looks at it. He says, The other one is looking at it. And he says, the other guy goes, looks like one of ours. Right? 1952. Looks like one of ours. That would be those German ones, right?
Yep.
That resemble those Hovering or whatever they call their name, the Hoveron or whatever. So he said, looks like one of ours. And the other guy says, no. And meanwhile, Jose is standing right like behind him, less than 3 feet away, just watching. And he says, no, it's not. It's one of theirs. I mean, space people. It's got these things here happening on it. And so that's what Jose told us happened. And he says it was a really good picture because it was one that George took when it was over out in the desert and it came hovering by and tilted or something like that. So we never saw the photo. This is Jose who told us this back then. And he said it was really great. Now he worked on the Integratron as a scientist with George Van Tassel. And Phyllis and I visited Integratron a couple times back in the 80s and 90s, 80s and 2005 or 4. Anyway, it doesn't matter. We went to California a couple times. And then Jose said, we're working on the little model. He had a model that he made, was about 3 foot diameter, he told us. And they had put this together to work the way George's instructions had come down from the crew, the space people at the time working with him. And they had it working. And so this was this prototype to become the big Integratron later.
Wow.
This was like 1952.
Wow, really?
It was something like that. I came out to the planet in 1953, but I've been visiting this place. And I was in a ship that flew over the Washington Capitol back then.
That was one of my questions, Mark, is that particular photograph, which is just burned in all of our minds, seeing all those ships going over the Capitol. And also the other one was the Phoenix, when all of a sudden those lights went all over the city, seen by thousands of people. Those are key photographs.
Yeah.
And my question is, what was the purpose of showing us that they were indeed in the skies, that they were indeed there? Was there a reason for that timing?
Well, that was after the bombs in the 40s. And that came through in 1951 or so. We came over. They were just trying to show you're not alone.
Okay.
We're here, you're not alone. But people might have taken it wrong. But back then, that's what it meant. It was to give peace, actually. They wanted to help. We're trying to get them to listen, but don't go with the other guys offering you stuff, which were the gray type beings. And they were saying, don't go with them. They're liars and tricksters, and we know them. They will sign a contract to go against everything. We know them. That's what the Ethereans were telling the president back then. And they took Eisenhower for a ride in the craft. There was 3 of them that came to the Air Force Base that time. And one was showing them how they change shape. Could be a 25-foot or 30-foot diameter spaceship that would look like it shrunk into a small little 12-inch spaceship. It was illusions, but they can do that with their frequency, and they know how to do that. And so really inside the ship, everybody's themselves. They're not shrinking into little tiny people. It's just the way they can make it look. So when people said, well, the ship was really big and it looked like it went like this, and I was like, that's what they can do. So they were showing the president back then and the military who were there, who were allowed to be there at that time, what technology, how that works, how we can do this and jump dimensions. And I was telling Alan Hynek back that in 1980, we met him. He asked me questions because he was very nuts and bolts about 3D everything. If it's not a spaceship and I can't feel it, and he wanted to talk to us because we were with the Scientific Bureau Investigation, was investigating our photographs and me for a couple of years. And our friend Pete was a lecturer there. So Hynek met him backstage, and Pete told Phyllis and I that he wants to meet us because of our story. And Pete had told them about my contacts and being on board out there and everything like that.
But it was the photographs.
But with the photographs, Pete had our photographs. Yeah, my photographs. So what happened is Hynek asked some questions, and he asked me about how they seem to disappear. Can they go 2 dimensions? I said, yeah. He said, well, how can they do that? And they said, well, the old bending of time and folding of this and that, it's a frequency, but it really works on dimensional spaces. And with that Horus effect, what they call the craft, frequency effect, they can bend or meld it. It looks like bending, but it's not. It's just moving through it. It suspends things. It's amazing. But they can move with the craft. It becomes the time machine effect craft. It can become more than just plasmic frequency. It melds in with the whole thing, with the frequencies of their plasma. Their energy craft is a plasmic frequency. So it looks very blurry or it looks transforming. That's plasma. That's what they work with in space is plasma. And it's not empty space. It's not this or that. So this is how they work it. They fusion with it kind of, and they mold through, and they can go jump spaces. They've taken me back on the ship. They've taken me back to 1967 where they're over my house. And I'm on the ship looking down at me, looking up at the ship. There was a lot of things like that happening, and they can do that. So Hynek listened to some of these we were talking about. Phyllis and we were both talking to him, and he was asking other questions. I think we mentioned oversouls, didn't we? We might have mentioned oversouls. It was a little over to hit that part, but it was about dimensions and how we can move through them and how everything is happening at once on the high realms. It's all happening now. So when they see on the ships, we're up there in those high realms, you see time pattern. And it looks like layers of paper or something. I don't know how to explain it any more than that, but they could see it on the frequencies in their craft. So you can see it, and they know where they're going. They know what time, where they're going. If they get to that place at 1951, 5 o'clock in the afternoon in New York City, they can do that. And that's why they can time it. So sometimes when people are seeing spaceships hovering over them, suddenly you're called to look up, and you look up and there's a ship there. It looks like a flying saucer, and it's happening suddenly. I tell people sometimes it's not just aliens, coming from anywhere. It could be aspect of your own self, your future aspect of you, who might be you in 100 years from now on another solar system, coming to visit you here now as the aspect it recognizes as itself. That's one thing they can do. And the other thing is your friends and family, your other alien buddies and friends on the other side, who are on those dimensions, on other planet systems as well, can visit the aspects and friends that they know from space, even from 1,000,000 years ago or thousands of years ago, and they know you're on the planet right now having that lifetime, and we know you from 50,000 years ago or 10,000, 1,000 years ago, and we're friends on those realms up there because we have aspects of ourselves there. It's hard to explain. And that future aspect might say, be on the ship, which has happened to me, my aspects have been there. So you can have your aspect there and you're saying, we're going to come visit you now and pop over you at 5 o'clock in the afternoon, let's say, and you're told, look up. And you feel familiar with the ship. You feel something there. And that's the love of your own self maybe coming through there, telepathing to you too, as well as your friends, those who know you. So it's hard for me to explain these things, but this is how they do things. So when you see a craft pop on suddenly, it just calls you to look up to it, and you see it and you go, wow, that was amazing. And you feel comfort energy. You send love to it or say hello.
That's happened. That has happened to
They
me.
watch
It's happened to the group. It's happened to the entire group.
Yeah.
So you're right spot on here. Yeah.
I'm telling you, we're in the ships. I've seen what they do and how we do things up there for hundreds of years. But here's what goes on. When we're hovering above you, could be, 10,000 or more feet up above or 20,000, it doesn't matter. They look like a star up there in the sky. They are tuned in. They can see you as close up as we're talking right now. They could be right there looking at you, and you're waving. So I tell people, just go, hi, say something, because they're listening. They can hear you too. So you go, hi, I love you. Thank you for testing me, or whatever you want to say, because we say they test people all the time to see if you're telepathically hearing them. So when you hear a voice that might say telepathically in your mind, it might say, hi, look up. I've heard that. Hello, look up. Hi, we're here. And you look up, or you're made to turn around to see whether they're behind you or they're in front, and that they're calling you like that. That's how they do it. And they monitor everything we're doing. So they see, oh, this person listened, they heard. Now, if you see and you're told or feel to look up, and there's nothing in the sky above you but the clouds, assume they're in there, but just that you're not seeing them because they're in etheric mode frequency. So you say, I hear you. Thanks for calling. I know you're up there. And I'm saying, I love you and thank you for testing me. Because what you're doing is showing them, even if we call you and you look up and you don't see a spaceship, you don't get mad and frustrated. You go, I love you. That's what they're looking for. And the energy in your frequency of white, light, gold, and blue, and pink, they're looking for that frequency, and they're monitored, and you're marked in the sense of frequency. They know who you are. So they know which souls are open and listening, who are tuned and are not going to get frustrated and angry and go, Because I used to take people out to the fields with me up in back in the 70s, early 70s, mid 70s, even before I met Phyllis. And I'd say to them, look, you might see something or you might not, but they're there. And if they show up, great. Here's what you do. But if we're called and you sense them, but you don't see anything, don't get mad and don't get frustrated and go, this is bunk. Just send thanks. I'm glad I'm happy to have been here, part of this. I'm having fun. That's what they want to do, is to make sure we're having fun and not get frustrated. Is that what I should be even mentioning, that part?
Yeah.
We used to have fun in the fields. Phyllis and I, nothing would happen. We were doing stuff, feeling them, sending love, giving thanks, and just saying hi and thank you and great to be here. So a whole night would go by, and it would be 3 a.m. too. That's what times we're out there.
Sometimes cold.
And nothing, very cold, and nothing would happen. We've had some, of course, we had a giant boomerang came over us very low, 1977, 78, I'm sorry, 78.
Yeah.
And it was cold out, but it came and monitored. It was black velvet. It had stealth mode going, silent mode. It just popped on above us, and you could feel them. And I was all happy, but they slowly went over. So we're in a football field. This thing was wider than football field. It was huge, and scanned us. You could feel a frequency going just over. You could feel it go by. and it went to our left above us, and then it just shut off. Now, when it was there, it blocked out all the stars, and you could see the stars on the other side of the wings, but it was silent, black, not one light on it. It was in stealth mode, which they do. That's the Therians, they can do that. And this was a wing before the wings came in the 80s. So we saw one of the first boomerang. It was very soft and boomerang shape. And I know that's one of their other stealth mode ships they used. So that was one night, but we couldn't take a photo of that. There's no way. But that was one of our nights. We've had other times things happen.
Those were
They're Therians, yeah. But see, I have a flashlight at the time. And I have a code I put out since I was a little kid. And that code, I'm sending it to my friends. And that's it. And then I put it away. And then I would take my little blue dot flash bulb camera, brownie camera at the time, and flash at the sky. It would create a blue light. The blue light was very significant. They don't have this anymore. So if we're out in the field, Nick, if we're ever in a field together, we have to get, do we have a blue gel?
Or just a blue laser.
A blue gel or a blue laser light, a very beautiful blue. Those frequencies coming from me, from space friends and who I know. The blue light pierces through the ethers. It pierces through, and they see that clearly in this high realm, on the other realms over there. So that's the light I was using back in the 70s, before I met Phyllis even, the blue dot flash bulbs, because when you flash them, there was a blue flash of light very quick. And I do 3 of them at the sky. And they would put something on my film. I didn't take a picture of them. They put it on my film. And yet when you looked at the film, it looks like a real solid object. And when they analyzed these pictures that were taken, where I was guided to aim the camera telepathically, people, if you were out there with me, you'd see me, we'd be talking, and as we're talking, I'd be talking with you, and I'm going, like this, and you'll be going, what are you doing? I said, this is what they're saying, turn, take a picture. And people with me would take a picture at the same time I was taking it, and only my film had the picture on it. So we realized they're doing this for a reason. People were frustrated, but the message was something else. It wasn't, other people now in the past have taken pictures too, but back then it was a different message I was trying to get other people to get some pictures at the same time, and it wasn't happening. And they said, well, that's because right now we're working, we're with you, we're working, we're family. For them, the others that were there, it's just a show. It's fun. It's a circus. It's not a real thing. They weren't feeling it from their heart. And this is what they told me. They said, we know, we can read them. We know what we're seeing. If it's just for fun or just for what the heck, let's just do some fun stuff. And it's not serious and it's not with love. They will not give any imaging. As time went on, for people we've known, some of them got pictures in time, and because they were really feeling that. But we're not promoting that though, guys. No, I don't want to promote people just running out there to take photos of any UFO you see flying by. We have to be very careful right now. I mean, this is what they told me back then too in the 70s. They were saying, be careful. And when I was a kid, I was talking about Betty Hill to them, and they said, look, if you see, they said, we know those beings. Do not concentrate or focus on them. They are not good. That was when I was about 10. They were telling me that.
Wow.
And Betty Hill had her experience back in 61. So they were telling me that, don't be, be careful. Then they told me something else. Be careful of dark red spaceships of light. When their light is glowing dark red, not jet pretty ruby red or apple giant bright red. Usually their frequency is moving when they do that color. They're not going to always stay steady in a red. They'll go to the orangey gold tone. So if you ever see a red kind of looking reddish ship that turns orangey red, then goes a little different. Those are good guys. They said if you see a ship in a dark maroonish, burgundy, dark red, almost muddy red,
right,
the same color, not shifting anywhere, do not look at it, turn away, get in the house. It's the bad guys looking around, because they come in that low frequency, dark frequency. And I mean, I've seen ships where they come in light, like white, and when they're moving up, they're going to go away. They go like that. You might see a shift of colors appear in like a rainbow or green, blue, white light. It just goes and it disappears. Those are frequency ships they work with. they're turning on the frequency around the plasma craft, the energy of the field of the plasma energy around it, which we also call the ionization field that forms around the ships too. So that's the glow that you might see hovering after the ship takes off. And there's a glow. That's the ionization field pattern that's going to dissipate.
But relevant to all of the, okay, because we could talk to you.
I know, sorry about
that. The thing that I think is really in people's minds is, who are they? What do they want? How do we know the good ones from the bad ones? How do we know the ones that are our family? And, also I wanted to go back to George Van Tasso's.
Yeah, I was going to head back there.
Mini Integratron.
That's what I'm going to finish
the
up.
Mini Integratron was a working model, and our friend
and Jose
watched it work.
Yeah, he was the scientist who worked with it.
And I just wanted to say that's sort of the precursor to what people are talking about as med beds today, because they figured out how to use energy.
Now, see, no one's written about this, but Jose told us this story back in 78 when we met him, and or 79 when we met him. He said he worked with that. They made the little model of the Integratron, the future to be Integratron. This was the plans the space people had given to George, as well as when he was telepathing with them with the frequency. He wasn't channeling. He was direct with a frequency that was talking with him. And I know that because I've done it and I've had it happen to me. So it's not like he's sitting there channeling. He was not doing that. He was sitting in calmness when they projected the energy towards him, and then he could hear them. So he was from them anyway, as we know. But the thing is Jose told us about this story. And so it's not written anywhere except by maybe Phyllis and I in the future. We'll write it down. But I've talked it in lectures since that time when we met him. He said they made their model. It was working. It was about 3 foot diameter. And they were setting up with electricity, right? One of their people went out to the desert and they caught a little lizard from the desert. They brought him back, the little lizard. And as much as I couldn't do it, but as one of these scientists did, is they cut his leg with a razor, his back leg, I think he said, it's like a little back left leg or something. He cut his little thigh with a razor, so he had a real cut there. Then they put the little lizard in the door area. It was fenced off, I guess, in the way that they make their thing, so he couldn't escape it. But they put him in, and he had to go through one door, one entry, and go inside the thing and come out the other side. He had to go around it in some way. And I don't know how they made that happen, but he did go through it in some way and come out another door on the other side of the machine. And when he came out the other side, he was totally healed. And wow. Jose saw that. And he said, so that showed them the working model frequency that George's space contacts were giving him. And that was what he was planning to do, right? Until the government probably came in.
Well, after he died, you remember, I think even Frank Chile, I think, talked about how the papers were confiscated after George died.
They went after, they came in and they did that, but they, according to Jose, they had a couple of models made, but one was the working model they really worked on, but they had little copies they had made to work on. So maybe one of the copies is left at the Integratron today, because we saw one there, but maybe the military at that time took the actual working one away, because that would be what they would do, right? Take the actual working one away.
Sure.
So George Van Tassel couldn't finish creating the rest of the project, because I know he was getting money, right? He was trying to get money for that, but it never got finished, and it was never really activated to be turned on. And that's
because it was like the top was going
supposed to rotate the other, goes the other way. It was like a centrifugal thing going on. But when Jose said it turned on, it was a vibrating effect and a sound, right? A frequency sound, sort of. But he said one part rotates right, and one part would rotate left. Mm-hmm. Maybe the dome moved, and the band that went around did another rotation. But it was amazing when he said that. He said, that was their test, and the lizard went through, came out healed on the other side. And who knew who filmed it back then? Maybe they did. But that was our friend, the witness to all these things happening to him. And he was into magnetics and scientific research of all kinds like that, and frequencies. because he used to show us these magnets. He had these magnets, a heavy thing, like a cylinder. It was heavy, and it had, when you touched it, you felt like this energy around you. It was really heavy. He would put it under a chair and sit on this lounge chair. And he said, "You feel that?" It's something like Ingo would have been interested in too.
Mark, I just got to jump in for 1 second because you're covering some really interesting subjects here. And just a couple of quick things. There are some stories circulating around that Eisenhower also met, shall we say, some bad ETs, and there was a deal struck that they could abduct a number of people, and then we would get a little bit of technology, not anything like you were talking about, but a little bit of technology. Do you have any input on that? Any idea of what was going on there?
Yeah, that happened in 1952 or so. I always thought it was 51 originally, but I remember I flew over in 51. I remember seeing those photographs the first time my father had some book or magazine, and I looked at the photo flying over the Capitol, and I said, "Oh, we did that." He said, "What?" Because my father was open to me. He knew I was strange, but he watched things happening all my life. He would ask me questions as a kid, and I would answer questions about dimensions, which we would call dimensions today, but I was calling it portal doorway. I was calling it doorways. And we're gonna cycle back. So what happened is I knew about these things, but I didn't have the knowledge of it yet. But I knew we had come in, we were trying to help people understand. And it wasn't me, but it was other crews of the Alliance groups working. So when I was out of body, I understood it. And when I come back, I was like, yeah. But then in the mid 70s, when I saw about George Van Tassel and some of that went on, I was out on the ships, out of body, or soul travel. And that's where I learned about, yeah, they did try to make a deal, but they didn't listen. And so I went, oh, they did, the good guys, our guys, tried to make a deal, but they didn't listen.
Right.
Went with the others, and they were
bad guys. They did make a deal, and I understand that the deal was not completed because the bad ETs, we'll call them that, actually went way farther with the abductions than the agreement was. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Okay.
Yep. Because
what did we get as the deal? What was that little fragment? Was it technology? What was it? Do you have any idea?
Well, laser technology.
Okay.
Medical technologies, because that's what these beings do. They do that. They make fake. Again, they were warned by the other dudes, our friendly ETs. They were, don't do any deals with the beings or little beings. They are known to be tricksters. They will lie. They will cheat. They will offer you things and not give it to you, and they will sign a contract and not deal with it. They will not follow it. They will always corrupt. So they were offered, the beings wanted, because their planet, their home planet. Now I knew this back then, way back in the 60s. I knew about these other beings who had no planet left. They had messed up the planet system. So these little gray types, some of these beings are grays, are 6 feet, some of them. Those are the ones that are, well, you can deal with them. But these other little ones that are like drones or clones or something, they're like robotic as well. But they have hive mind entity like technology in their mind. They do that. But these other ones that came, there's different species of these beings. Some resemble and look similar, but they're not the same being. So we have always got to be careful that we're not putting down a good being. There's some that are very small and white skinned and green, bluish skin tones, and they're benevolent and they're nice. And they're on the etheric levels too. But the ones that came are physicals like us. They are physical, that have technology, that they can work within the dimension of space, that they can dematerialize. They'll walk into your bedroom, appear in your room. You say, nobody open the door. They just appear. They have that technology. It's teleportating. They can do. So we knew that these beings, and I'm saying we, meaning the other crew, other friends up there, well, they were warned about these beings. But once the Earth people signed a contract, that was it. Their hands are tied. Space people came now. You made the contract. That was your free will. You did it. We warned you. But
that's right.
Did it for greed. They did it for power. They did it for this and that. These beings wanted a base because their planet is not in here anymore. So they've been traveling around. They try to do this on other planets as well. And they do these things on other planet systems that are physicals like us, here. And they, not just this solar system, other solar systems. And they will do that, create bases even on their little moons or whatever they want. They do a base and then they make a deal of some kind. We'll do this for you or do that for you, or show you about how to make a food or whatever. And they'll give you something in return if we can learn about your form.
Mm-hmm. And I understand that a lot more people were abducted than the original deal. A great many more people were abducted.
Let's say they were allowed 10,000 people a year to check and put back where you found them.
Right, right. That was the deal. That was the deal.
Like that. Yeah. And instead it was more than that. And they did kill people, so we got to, remember there was a colonel or somebody was dropped on top of a mound of garbage or something in a place, and he was dead, and he had been taken. So this is back in the 70s or something. So we gotta be careful not to be out there looking around, because these beings are here. Mm-hmm. I don't know anybody else says this stuff, but probably they do. But I've known this back then. We got to be very careful because they have a base underground and it's out west. And but now that we know about these deep underground tunnels, which were ancient, I was told about the tunnels in England in 1978 by people who've been to the tunnel area, but they had mentioned these things are all around the place, but they're ancient. So I mentioned back then to the guys, that's tunnels from thousands of years ago. Even the space beings knew of them because they would use them to scoot through parts of the planet system faster, or the physical Earth planet. But these ships were small scouts, and they could fit into these tunnels. But they're even more ancient. So we got to be watchful. These entities were only offering certain technology to be released. But it was the Earth people. They had to learn. They were the ones who would figure out when they want to release this information or this medical information. So the lasers were released early in the, I guess, but maybe in the 50s they came with the lasers. And the dental laser type technology came in the 70s or 60s and 70s. So they were doing different things for eyes. Now you got the same. Our Earth people work with that technology and fixed it up. Now they're working with eyes. That's kind of what happens, how they can work with it. But they were given other things. They have sonic, they captured one of these things off one of the ships. So it's a sonic frequency gun.
Cannon.
And they call it it looks like a cannon effect. But we found this information out from a spy who we met, who would not give his real name. We knew it was John. That's it. But that was not his name. But that's his name for now. But he came to visit us with a friend and to find out what we knew about the underground places out west. And so I only had the 1978 experience with the guys I met there in England. But I was able to tell them because I knew this from space friends up there. I knew they had underground. We knew this underground places that are maybe a couple miles down, and it's hard to fathom that in 78. But that was happening. So they've been doing this for a long time, and and it's been out happening. So he wanted to know what I knew about the Roswell ships. And one of this object was taken from the ship, and then he was called out because he was a bomb expert, and he was actually one of the guys in the when they had the people trapped in the consulate in Israel, the 1980s or something. Remember when all the people were caught in the I think it was a consulate, but they had to escape and get them out. They were being held captive there. A lot of people. Well, he was called in to be a person that could find ways to help with getting out of it.
How to dismantle atomic bombs.
Yeah, he could dismantle bombs, and he was a bomb expert. So they called him in to California area to check out this object that they've had. And it was obviously from the Roswell times. That's how long they've had it. But they were trying to examine it more. They couldn't break through the metal. Nothing would cut through the metal, not laser, nothing would cut through it. And it had two spheres and he tried to describe it to us. It was like a tripod and two spheres and what looked like a cannon, a funneled cannon, right? Like a cylinder out. And they said, they hooked it up. This is what he told us. He said they hooked it up to get electrical pulsing through it. They couldn't see how it really works. So they wanted to x-ray it, and they saw that was inside was different. So they wanted a bomb expert to look at it, see if it's some kind of bomb before they try to do too much with it or figure it out more, like cutting it open, would it blow up? So he was out there, he goes underground. Phyllis and I asked him just for fun. Out of all those James Bond movies everybody sees back in the 60s and 70s, and we met him during the 90s. Is any of that, we know there's futuristic stuff that they have. So we were asking, what are they showing in the movie? Is that what we already have?
Okay.
And he said, remember James Bond even had a hover car of some kind, maybe at one point? Well, they had, he says, we're technologically 50 or so years or more ahead of what you see. But we know it's more than that. But he said it back then. He said, well, they have things that, remember the trains on a hover train? They have all that, and they've had it. So he examines the x-rays they took of this machine, and he says, well, it's not a bomb. It's some kind of a mechanical machine of some kind. It might even be like a battery, but it's something else too, but it's not a bomb. There's nothing there that shows that. So they said, okay, you want to come back into this other room away from another meeting he was listening to? And they took him to another room, and they had it set up in that other room. And estimating how far the room was lengthwise, he said it was a solid wall of cement bricks back there, like 20 some odd feet or more away. And he had the machine here, and they showed it to him, and he said, wow, the cylinder, the whole thing was silver, and there's no seams on it anywhere to show how it was made. Everything was seamless. Well, that's what the technology is in space. Seamless memory metal.
Oh, that's no
Yeah,
boats.
I was telling my dad about memory metal. I was 5 years old.
But
I didn't have a word for it.
Tell him what happened.
So he says, they said, let's show you what it can do, what we discovered. So he said, oh, great. Yeah. So he told him, stand over here and watch the brick wall, the big cement wall, the cement blocks, like big cement blocks. So they turned it on, and he said it would sound like a little humming frequency thing. And if they had something they set up, it wasn't on the machine, and they could turn the frequency higher for them. And it went, whatever it did. And then it made a pulse. He didn't see a beam go out. He said it was aimed at it, and it punched a hole in the brick wall, whatever, 50 feet away or whatever it was, 25 feet away. Punched a perfect hole through it, about 3 foot diameter, roughly. And he said to me, what can do that? And I said to him, because of what we've seen in space, we use these things, but they're not weapons. Earth would use it as a weapon. They don't use it as a weapon. They use it for mining. And that would explain Roswell ships having one, because they like to mine stuff, get the minerals and things out that they can use. And that explains their perfect circular round tunnels with no seams on the sides, all like glass. And they punch it through, and it's a frequency, so nothing is left, no dirt to scrape away from the tunnel. It's dematerialized with the frequency. So it's a sonic cannon, and that's how I know it from space. We call it, in our Earth term, right? That's the best we could say. It's a sonic cannon, sonic frequency enhancer. And I said to him, if it goes on higher frequency, the hole will get bigger. And he said, oh my gosh, the scientist said, if we turned it any higher, it would have gone past this brick wall into the next wall further back. It would just keep punching if we kept doing something like that. So see how their technology, I don't think Earth's ready for it, but they're using it, obviously. They probably made more tunnels with it, or after they figured what it was. And maybe they got ETs that were working with them, that are working with them, in humanoids as well, that would fix that or make something even better. Who knows? But this was those scientists doing that back then. That was in the mountains in California, around Nevada and those areas, Sierra Mountains or whatever they're called. So he said they were 7 levels down, and he had to go on the escalator or elevator that they have,
Mhm.
And a guy in England went on an elevator that was the length of 7 subway cars, because he said, you know, Mark, the tubes, and we know, yeah, our subways. He said, you know, one car. I said, yeah. He said, now imagine 7 of them, right? I said, okay, we know they come usually in 7 cars. He said, that's the length of the platform. That was an elevator that took him down with the trucks he was using to fix telephones and telephone communication to come in. This was near Bristol, England, where that happened for him. So this has been going on. That was 1978. And
Mark, I want to just insert one thing here, and that was Dr. Greer, Dr. Stephen Greer, on one of his lectures said something, and it was parallel to just what you said. Dr. Greer said, if you see a craft and it's close enough, if you're seeing any seams at all in that craft, it's
right.
from us. It's
Us.
from us. But if you're seeing something seamless, it's them.
Yeah, that's right.
So I just wanted to throw that in. Yeah.
Yeah, I met a guy before I met Phyllis, 1976. A friend I had, she's on the other side now. Somebody came to visit her, and I was there, and she introduced me as one contact. Anyway, so he's like, "Oh wow!" Now he was military. He was one of the guys that would stand guard with the gun at the Edwards Air Force Base, and his friend stood guard at Hangar 18. And he told me what his friend saw, because you're not. He said you're supposed to stand there and look straight ahead, not look anywhere. You're not can't turn. But when he had to let somebody in, the friend, they let some high up, whoever they are, ranking guy in. He had to turn a little to let the guy go by, and the other guy, the scientist inside, opened the door. And it was at that, even though he was turning with the gun, he said he saw what was inside with his eyes, like peripherally scanned it, and then went right back to his position. Inside was a spaceship there. So he was saying the man, I never remember the guy's name anymore. I think it was Jim. It doesn't matter. We didn't stay in touch. It was one of those things. He was from the South somewhere. He was just visiting. But I knew when I'm hearing, I have to use these things for future references for us.
Sure.
This guy saw the spaceship, and they were saying, oh, Hangar 18 was just a fake hangar. They didn't do anything. And well, his friend told him, he got very quiet with me, telling me we had tea and everything with our friend, my friend Millie. And he said he was not able to see in. He was one of the guards, but that one time he saw in, he was like, oh my gosh, it's true. And he was telling this guy. And he said there were people that would come there, they would not be allowed in. And they were almost like the highest ranking, and they couldn't be allowed in if they didn't have certain credentials that they had to have from whoever is inside the hangars. So he knew, or they knew, that there were bodies, but they didn't know where they were. They just felt they were there in the area, maybe not that hangar. And so one day, after learning that information, I took an out-of-body trip over to the Hangar 18 at the time that it was now, at that time. And I went snooping around, and I found in a downtown underground area is the bodies, and they were in freezer-like units, and they were set up, and it was just like you could see them. Some were aliens, definitely aliens, and others were not gray-like. They were small, 4 foot or so, humanoid-looking, so they like little people, like little Earth people.
Mhm.
And so I actually stood there and I prayed for them, because I'm hoping they were dead before they frozen.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Wow.
But I prayed for them, and I felt, wow, they are down there, they are there. And some of the Roswell beings that I know they're promoting the Greys, but I was given their information in the 78 about the craft being, might not have been the Roswell, might have been another craft, but it had about 9 humanoid-looking beings, and these persons I saw in one of those couple of those chambers looked like those beings that I had heard about. Light hair, long hair, small, tiny humanoid, but human-looking, and they had perfect teeth. This was the autopsy a friend told me about. He's on the other side too. Everybody's on the other side that I went back then. That they had been autopsied and had a spiral. Now, a lot of these aliens we know, these other guys and Ethereans, they have a spiral nervous system, not like ours is like tree branched, right? Theirs is a little different. And these little aliens, these beings, showed a spiraling energy. Where their heart was a larger heart than should be for their body. But they said it could withstand pressures like climbing on a mountain and going down into the ocean. So it would be able, their bodies could handle that pressure. Amazing, right? And their teeth were perfect. Their teeth were just perfect. They had large brains, so they had a higher forehead. They might be a 4 foot and change being, but their size, this is what they were showing if they were compared to a human of the same type, I guess. So they're showing that. I think they said their body looked very young, like 30s what we would estimate 30s, but they could tell by the brain they had to be older. They had to be way older. And there was something about what they were telling them that they could see. So but their stomach was a little different. And some of the organs were sort of where ours are, but not exactly in some spots. So they had different things happening. Their lungs were bigger. So they had a bigger chest, maybe. So their lungs could handle that depth and could handle climbing Mount Everest, let's say, without oxygen tanks or something. So whatever that was that they could handle these kind of pressures. It looked like naturally for them.
Mm-hmm.
That's amazing, right? So these are physical beings.
We have two brain. We have a two brain. That's who we are. Two brain. Did they have? I don't know. I've read that there are one brain, two brain, and more.
Yeah.
Do you have any idea about what that was like for them? What they have?
Yeah. Thanks for saying that, because that was part of their brains were like similar to ours, but way more happening in their brain. They said watching that. Remember, their foreheads were higher.
Right.
And they had more capacity for brain in their 4.5 foot body of their size compared to us. So they could tell that their brains had more neural networks in them and more formations in them that showed that they were highly telepathic, highly intelligent. All the areas where the nodes were needed were like blasted big. So they had a lot of things going on that they could tell these beings, these people, looked like people. They could fit in. They had blue eyes, or they had, whatever, longish hair. So they looked like little small humans. But those are the differences. They had 6 fingers. Forgot about that. They had 6 fingers and 6 toes. But they were basically males. They didn't say there was a female with the 6 or so that they found in one of these ships that crashed. And now I have no proof on that. It might have been one of the Roswell discs. Maybe there were another one somewhere else or another time. But that was an autopsy a man told me about from England who had contacts. He's gone too. But
wow. At this point, Marc and Phyllis, I mean, I know that when we interview you, the time I can't. Well, it's an hour goes by in like 10 seconds. I mean, it's amazing the layers of information that you and Phyllis have. What I want to do now, if it's with your permission, is ask if anybody has a single question that they're burning to ask. Is that all right to do that now?
I didn't know it was past 8 o'clock already.
Well, we already hit 8:17. I know it goes so fast. I mean, amazingly so. Raise your hand or wave to me if you have okay, we have Linda. Linda, unmute yourself, and if you give them one sentence question, if you will, one sentence.
Well, it's hard in one sentence, but I've experienced a tremendous amount of whatever that you're talking about, and I shared with the group when I joined them. Thank God I found this group. I've experienced, I've experienced in my bedroom them coming through the walls. paralyzing me, whispering some language that I still think about in my ear. And this has happened numerous amount of times from time to time, that whisper, there's a certain language that they have, a whispering language in my ear. But of course, I was totally paralyzed, was not allowed to even open my eyes, but I envisioned 3 of them, and I heard them marching in the room, and I heard them talking to each other, and I felt them handling me in some sort of way. But of course, when I got up in my bedroom, I was right where I was before I was in that trance state. So that's just one little itty bitty thing out of the 1,000 things that have happened to me.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah,
At some point, you guys, when we can hopefully soon get together, and even in Central Park on a beautiful day when we can get together, we have a picnic planned next month, by the way, in Central
Wow.
Park. So,
That'd be
but
fun.
yeah, and maybe we can then, because there's a lot more to that. Linda, I know there's a lot more that goes on just
Yeah.
with you. So we have a lot more time because I really want to get into the dialogue back and forth. 'Cause, I
Linda.
mean, it would be amazing.
yes.
Were they humanoids or those grays?
As I saw them in my vision, even though I was paralyzed and I couldn't open my eyes, because I have visions and I'm psychic
Yeah.
and I see all that and all. I saw them tall, 7 feet, 6 to 7 feet, like monster, or like a giant type, not monster, like giant type beings, long, tall, and together, talking. And also the the enlarged head, and just long arms and thin bodies, but I saw them as not short beings. I saw them as long. I've had my experience with the short beings too. That's, I can't take all this time up, but I've had like 1,000 situations. I was sick for 40 years, Mark. I came to the session. I told Nick and the group, I was sick for 40 years. I couldn't find myself. I was going out of my mind, and I found myself 6 years ago.
Wow.
Linda, did they have hair or were they bald like me? No. Truth.
They weren't bald. No, they had some sort of, not bald like you. No, they had some sort of enlarged heads where it seemed like they had hair, but it was not hair. It was just the structure of their anatomy on top, how they were fixed.
Linda, did you ever have an opportunity to either think a question to them or ask a question of them?
They communicate with me telepathically, and we have this communication, and I have now understood what is going on with me. They communicate with me. In other words, if I'm not feeling right and I'm going through a transition of higher conscious level, and I have to go through all what I go through, this distress of bodily and physical and emotional distress, they tell me, they call me Virginia because my first name is Virginia. They say, Virginia, trust us. In 2 days, you will be at that plateau and you will feel totally in bliss. 2 days passes and I feel totally in bliss. When I'm in distress, they guide me where to go, what to do, what to say. And I have total contact with whomever. They're with me constantly. Channeling is every day. I meditate.
You know what, Linda?
1 hour in the morning, 1 hour at night. In the middle of the night, I meditate. That's when I can communicate with them, 3 o'clock in the morning.
That's a time.
You deserve to be able to ask them some, specifics to find out, what, number one, where they're from in your timeline. Are they where you're going to go after you leave this particular lifetime? I mean,
they have been talking to me quite a lot lately.
Mhm.
They have been saying that you chose to be here and go through this. So this distress is what you chose to do and you signed up for it. But we are always here to back you up and also alter the chart a bit so you don't suffer as much. Okay. They also say to me that it's not long, but I mean, our earthly time, 15 years or so, when you will come back and you will join us and we will have a lot to share.
Yeah, you know what? You're one of those people in the alien groups, not aliens, you know what I mean? Our
Yeah,
friends and family and alliance groups. I'm hearing for you with the crew, they're saying, oh, the beings you're talking about are healer beings. They're the ones that work like doctors. They're very compassionate people. They're
I have
bad
a lot of
guys at
Dr.
all.
Guides.
Yeah, and you're from them. And that's why, remember, they always, the crew and everybody I work with, they're always saying, we come to our own. And any ships you're seeing in the sky, when they come to you, or if you see something you're called to, it's usually someone from your own past. Either you've been a Venusian or something, but
I
right
don't
now,
have it all diagnosed who's who and what's what yet, but it's coming. Also, I have for the last 4 years, I have the ability to go into the body and to diagnose disease. I go through all the organs, and with certain methods that they teach me and channel through me, I'm able to diagnose cancer. My friend, I diagnosed cancer in the liver, also a bit of nicotine poisoning in her blood. She went to the doctor, and exactly that's what he told her. So I'm able to diagnose diseases and malfunctions in the body.
that's fantastic.
Incredible, incredible. Now,
That's
with the time left, I hate to do this, guys, because
I'm
I mean,
so sorry I had to speak
no,
over
no,
everybody,
no,
but
Linda, it's
yeah, Linda,
wonderful. The things you're saying are wonderful. I just got to move. If anybody
one of
else
the
has a
benevolent beings.
question, okay. Carol, please, if you unmute yourself and if you could keep it to one question because the time is going real quick. You unmute yourself first. There you go.
Wanted to know, Mark, have you ever discussed the Eisenhower experience with Laura Eisenhower?
No, no, I've talked about it since the 70s when I learned about some things, but I know from out on the ships where when I'm asking questions out there, when I'm out in space. So a lot of this information I got from them. And when we were being, Pete Mazzola and the Scientific Bureau for Investigation came to investigate us with our photographs, especially my early photographs and then photographs Phyllis and I were having. They were asking some kind of questions back then. And I would go and even be able to tell them what I know from what I learned from the other side as well. And what I know from my crew and friends from before I came here as well too. So when I was born in 1953, came in, but I was 5 years old when I saw the day the earth stood still for the first time, the original. And I told my father that this is real, this really happened. They did have people coming, didn't mean they landed on the White House lawn, but just that, and they probably did already. But the thing is we were visiting then, and I was telling my father how what he was saying in the movie was kind of like some of the things that it goes by in space. You can handle things the way you want, but when you start affecting us, we have to come in and step in. And that's the rules. It's like the Star Trek, like the prime directive, right? Not to harm the people on the planet. You can observe and watch them or step in once in a while or show them things if needed for time. So last cataclysms that occurred on the planet, we were visiting and we were helping after the last flip about how to grow things. And we brought different kinds of corns to the Hopi actually back in those ancient times, 3,000 years or more, 5,000 years ago. And we brought some things like that. So the corns were actually many different kinds of corns that they could use in different properties of them that healed. So they have purple corn, blue corn, green corn, red corn, orange corn, white corns, and different colors of corn. Now, today you don't see these colors anymore, but they were existing back then, and they've probably gone extinct in some way. So people would come and help, and those beings would come and help us on the planets at the time, the physical planets. And remember, a lot of these beings are physicals that are coming here because they want resources. They want to share things back to their planet systems and others for a resource as well as trade. And that's what this physical density of these planets is set up like a trade. So if you saw a movie like, I can't remember, Avatar, that movie, where they were taking the planet and they want to get rid of the indigenous species, move them off, go away, we don't want you here. That's what they try to do, these little other beings. They're talking about reptilians and some of these gray types. They like to do that kind of stuff. Move people through, we're going to take over the place later with our hybrids. So you got to be careful about all this stuff. Everybody's promoting this. We got to be careful because they're going to try to bring in the artificial intelligence more strongly, because on other planet systems, physical like ours here, dense physical,
Personal.
they have, we call it first level. This is, they try to do this. They bring in robotic things to do things for them, but then they move off the species that's there. If they didn't do it, they will try it. If the species is not aware enough, they take them a lot. But that's what they're inside our planet now, the reptilians types. Some of them are from this planet, progressed from dinosaur type creatures, yes. But then there's these other ones that come from space, the other ones that are known as negative beings, not very friendly and not very good. But some, we can't say everybody, some are okay and will try to help the humans or the other beings. And they work with some of the alliance groups too, where they've left. And we met some people from Brazil that had experiences with little grays or other beings, including the Venusians, or what people might want to also call the Pleiadians or whatever. But these Venusians are not them. But the thing is, these beings came and they had an experience with one that landed a craft and came out, it was about 3 feet, 4 feet tall, and it was a gray. And they stayed back from the being, and this telepathic is being talked to them and told them, look, not all of us are bad. We don't all abduct people or do these things, but we're here. We want to not let you know there are some of us trying to work against our other people that are our same species. So they're trying to be working with the good people. So we got to be always remember, when there's a good being, there's always a negative being too playing with us. So even though there's, I hate to say this, really do, but we know there's different beings that come from the areas known in when we look at the sky as Pleiades and beyond. There's other systems beyond that we don't see from Earth. There's beings there calling themselves Pleiadian, coming through, saying they're Pleiadian, but they're not. And they are not all good. And they will trick people. So we got to be very careful who we're talking with, telepath, whatever we're doing, always test them. You got to test them. There's a bunch of beings out there that are promoting bad information about Yehoshua, who is known as Sananda in space. We know him as Sananda, the creator of the creator's son, but he's the creator. They're promoting bad information that's not true, and they bring it to Earth. Some of the information was given to Billy Meyer.
Yeah.
We got to be careful.
With
These
that,
guys
Mark,
working against
with
us.
that, I mean, again, Carol, thank you for your question. It was a great one. I know other people have questions and we're out of time. So what I'm going to ask you to do, guys, if you have a question for Mark or Phyllis, email me your question, please, and I'll forward it. If that's okay, Mark and Phyllis, I'll then forward it to you, because there might be some burning questions out there, and we've already hit the 90 minutes, so we're out of time. I want to thank you so much again. You guys are the best. I hope that maybe in July, perhaps, ask for a schedule and see if you can come back and do another part of this incredible journey that you are on and that we are all a part of. So just thank you so much.
Thanks, Nick. I hope, Carol, we answered your
Mark.
question. Sorry.
We all
And
are.
Phyllis, thank you, Phyllis.
There's Phyllis's
Thank you,
hand.
everyone.
Oh, there's Phyllis's hand. Phyllis, I love that hand.
Blonde hair.
It's a beautiful hand, Phyllis. Oh, there she is. We saw Phyllis. We saw Phyllis. Oh, the
It's
mystery
like the
woman,
Bigfoot. You see it, but you're not sure.
the high point of the day. Oh my God. All right, now look. So thank you, everybody. You are the best. This organization is cutting edge, and it makes me so proud to have people in this group with the caliber and the amount of research that goes on every single day. Thank you so much. So we're going to leave now. This is Nick Curto for Disclosure Network New York, wishing you all an enlightened journey as you connect the dots to seek truth. Till next time, keep informed, stay safe, and be very, very kind to one another. Goodbye for now. Much love to you all.
Adonai
Take care.
Vasu Bragas.
Namaste.